ways.
Shall we start singing I Feel Pretty?
No.
It's sing Moana.
No.
I feel pretty.
Oh, so pretty.
And witty.
And gay.
Oh my God.
All right.
And action.
I'm going to start.
And action.
Can you leave that, please? Just start the podcast with Gerard singing that.
You're listening to the Medic Materials Podcast, hosted by Mike Turek, Emily Yates, Kelsey Coons, and Gerard Cuomo. All are current EMS providers and educators with a combined 30 years experience. Each month, we discuss EMS news, medical science, and review actual EMS calls, bringing many educational opportunities to the listener. Portions of the calls have been altered to protect the privacy and identity of all involved.
Hello and welcome, everyone, to the Medic Materials Podcast. My name is Mike Turek. I am here with Kelsey, Gerard, and Emily, as always. And it is May 1st, and May is National Mental Health Month. And we were kind of discussing what we were going to talk about for the month of May. And not only do we do, call reviews and open discussions, but we also talk about, things that happen in real life and, how providers deal with real life. And we kind of like to open up those cans of hard conversations. So for this month, we are going to be talking about first responder mental health. And today we are going to be joined with an awesome lady. Her name is Joni. And she runs a local rescue and dog training program here in upstate New York. It's called Operation at Ease. All of the links for her contact information will be in the description in the show notes of whatever platform you're listening and or watching on. And we're gonna fill up the rest of the hour pretty much with a lot of her talking. I don't think we talked a lot.
I asked a lot of questions.
We asked a lot of questions, but we let her pretty much do all the talking. And what she has to say was amazing.
Yeah.
In the program that she runs with the rescue dogs and the service dogs, and being out there and offering these services free of charge to first responders with, post-traumatic stress. And I think that's, it's one of those things that isn't talked about enough. And I think we're starting on that cusp of it starting to get out there and talking more and more. I think, people like Dan's son that you and I had the pleasure of talking to really were at the forefront of bringing that conversation about post-traumatic stress in EMS first responders to a forefront. Yeah. I think he got the ball rolling to where now more and more people are, able to talk about it. So, Kelsey, before we jump right into the interview, you have our monthly or bi-weekly, whatever the hell it is.
Wow.
Whatever the hell it is, rig check.
Doesn't care.
I don't care.
So first I want to say that, honestly, this entire episode made my heart happy, including this rig check. So we have officially reached 1,500 downloads on the podcast. Woo-hoo. So hopefully we'll get maybe 1,600 with this great episode. We should. We have also officially reached 380 subscribers on our YouTube page, so thank you to everybody who has subscribed.
Wow.
Our next goal is 400 subscribers, so make sure you subscribe, let your friends know, tell everybody.
Tell everybody.
So you can also support us by rating and reviewing the podcast on whatever streaming platform you listen to, and if you have a cool and interesting call you want to hear us review on the show, fill out the Survey Monkey below. So today's shout out goes to Cooper, Rubble, Shadow, and Autumn, and everyone out there who owns a dog.
Oh, Rubble.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Sure, Cooper's excited.
He's probably still sleeping.
Cats, no love for you.
Yeah, no love for cats.
We're talking about rescue dogs today, so.
Notice they don't have rescue cats.
Exactly.
Because they're evil.
They're evil and self-centered. I know because I have two of them. They use me and abuse me.
When I was 7, I called my mom and I was like, hey, if I can catch a barn cat, can I keep it? And of course I was 7, so she was like, yeah, sure, thinking I'd never catch a cat.
Bring someone a mountain lion.
No, I brought home a really tiny cat that eventually got to be really fat.
My cat is really fat.
Was it the bobcat that guy threw in that video? I watched that for the first time last night. Mark came over and he was like, "Did you see the Bobcat video?" He goes, "Bobcat!" And I was like, "No." And I watched it, and the dude really does. He's like, "Bobcat!" Ah!
That's like the Florida Man video I watched where, and only my people could do this. He didn't get the chalupa he wanted at Taco
he
Bell.
threw the
So he throws the
alligator.
alligator through the window. The 4.5-foot alligator. No muzzle. Fully open mouth. Right through the window.
Only in Florida.
Yeah, honestly.
Only in Florida. Oh, God. But we have listeners in Florida, so
My people.
So stay safe in Florida.
My people
don't throw
represent.
any alligators. But in all seriousness, this conversation really is.
Taco Bell meat tasted so good the rest of that week. I'm sorry.
I was
I
trying.
mean, gator is good.
Gator is really good.
Yes, it is.
So is
That's
ostrich,
good for
actually.
you. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
On that note,
Sorry.
On that note, yeah. So, Anywho, but in all seriousness, the conversation with Joni, we talk all about what her background is and how you can get, one of these amazing dogs if you're in that position where you might need a service dog, and kind of open up your eyes to the availability of services that aren't just like, hey, go pound sand, or, hey, I did this really rough call, and hey, Soup, I'd really love for you to like help me out. And they're like, well, we got nothing for you.
suck it
ready
up,
for the next
Buttercup.
call,
Right. Get ready for the next call, and this is a program that I think a lot of people can get behind. She's looking to expand, which I think is really awesome.
I was gonna say, even if you just, if you actually are perfectly fine and everything's good and you want to support it,
There's a lot of ways to
There's-
do that
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
not just monetary, but I mean, even we're talking about fostering the dogs, things like that. There's all kinds of ways to support it.
Yeah.
Even showing up at the fundraiser.
And if you already have a dog, there's a
Please
dog
do.
wash you can bring your dog to.
absolutely,
Yep.
we'll be there.
Oh God,
We'll
I
be
can't
there.
wait.
Yeah. Cooper will be so happy.
So excited.
Oh my God, he'll
all
be
that
so
hair will
excited.
clog all the drains.
Probably.
Shadow's gonna get pampered.
I'll just bring Rubble because he will not get in that water.
Oh my God, my dog hates groomers.
So, all right, guys, if there's nothing more, I will lead you into the interview. Again, Joni Bonilla from Operation at Ease. Enjoy. All right, so we're sitting here with Joni Bonilla of Operation at Ease, and we hear the puppies already. And there they are. I know everyone was really bummed that the dogs couldn't be here with us, but Joni, kind of explain what Operation at Ease is, and your background, and how you started the program.
Sure. Operation at Ease is a nonprofit organization that takes dogs from shelters, pairs them with veterans, first responders, and most recently nurses, and provides a free guided training program for post-traumatic stress and mobility service dogs. We started about 6 years ago because I was looking for a service dog for a friend of mine who had recently left his military service. And when I started to call organizations, I was just met with red tape and politics and price tags of $30,000 and waiting lists of 5 years. And so I've been training dogs myself for over 20 years. I've been a military spouse for around that time as well. So I just decided, rather than be upset about it, I would bring something that was lacking to the community.
I like that.
That's amazing.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I held the first class in my front yard. I really thought that I would just do maybe like three or four dogs a year. Even though I knew there was a need for it, I truly didn't understand what a need there was for it.
And can you kind of elaborate on what kind of need you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think, our program differs from other service dog programs, because typically service dog organizations have a breeding program. The trainer trains the puppy throughout a course of a few years, and then the recipient is matched with the dog. And over a course of 2 weeks, there's a handoff, and then that person is sent home. And that's what creates the price tags and the waiting list. The way I designed our program was I created it to be a guided training program, which means our participants come to classes every week for almost a year. So they really make, one, it combats isolation. They're in groups with their peers working again, which, as you all know, that when you're in a veteran first responder community, the people you work with, are who you trust and who you lean on. And when you leave that community, it's just missing. So we kind of try to recreate that. Everybody starts together and everybody ends together. The program, so they have to get up, they have to show up. They come when their days are bad. They learn to work through it, and it really puts them in the driver's seat of their healing, as opposed to and I'm not knocking talk therapy, because I do believe that it's a puzzle and we need all the pieces to put the big picture together. But rather than talk therapy and replaying the worst days of your life, it really gives them verbs to kind of get through it.
It almost gives them like a purpose for that,
it totally
for that amount of
gives them
time.
a purpose.
The
people who don't have dogs already, we match them with the dog from the shelter. So they really get the added benefit of saving somebody, which, I mean, let's face it, that's just an innate quality for somebody who does, first responder work or veteran work. You don't get into that field if you don't have some manner of, feeling
totally
the
true.
need to, do something more. And so this lets them do something more. All of our dogs have stories, just like they have a story. Our dogs aren't perfect and they're not perfect. And they each just really work towards saving each other. We also don't always give easy dogs. I mean, depending on the person, I'll sometimes give somebody a dog who I know is going to be a little tougher, just so that person can be like, I made it through this. I accomplished this. I did this. I made this work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys have a question?
It's pretty.
I'll just keep
It's
going.
pretty awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Kelsey's
go
got
ahead.
a question.
But I have a question.
So, does it matter like what type of dog? Like, could you have like a Great Dane or a Chihuahua? Like,
So we've had
what type of dog you liked?
We've had 2 or 3 Chihuahuas go through the program. So we definitely have. My favorite breed, it ended up, one piece I wasn't even remotely considering was the advocacy piece. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a veterans advocate. Now I'm a first responder advocate, and I'm a huge pit bull advocate. They are hands down my favorite breed to work with.
I love that saying.
But if somebody has a dog already in the family, who they're comfortable with, we do a temperament test on their dog. And so they can already use somebody who they have in the home. But I definitely think I've never had a bad experience with any pit bull we've ever placed, but I don't ever let anybody pick their breed. You can pick your size based on what you think you need. If you really feel like you need a big dog to be out because your experiences now warrant you have a big dog at your side, or maybe you need someone small because you really want them to be able to jump up on your lap, or you want to be able to carry them, you can pick the size. And then I pick the dog based on who you are as a person, what your needs and what your goals are. Because your world gets bigger. Go ahead.
What is the interview process like for that? For like getting into the program, getting your dog chosen for you?
So it is you have to want this program to get into it. You have to fill out our application online. You have to provide an emergency contact who doesn't live in the home with you with 3 other references. If we're placing a dog with you, there's a home visit. I need a doctor's note that the dog is medically necessary. And then I need a co-signed waiver that you are in therapy. Because what we do is exposure therapy. We just do it with dogs. And none of us are mental health care professionals. We keep that out of OAE so that everyone has somewhere to go without psych, someone sitting there and analyzing you and, diagnosing you while you work. It's just where you come with your dog and we just get stuff done. But things come up. I mean, the first half of our program is done in a classroom, but the second half is you're paired off with our public access trainer, and she takes them everywhere we could possibly think of in the Capital District to ensure that their dogs not only are well behaved in public, but that they know how to task appropriately. So we go to the airport, we go to restaurants, we go food shopping, we go to, prior to COVID, we even did a lesson at the VA because nobody walks in the VA without their adrenaline spiking, and then we don't need,
including us.
Yeah, I mean, anybody, we work on the dogs waiting in line. We anywhere we could possibly think. We go to the mall. We make sure the dogs are in elevators multiple times, anywhere that we can think that Terry, she's our trainer, can think of, they go to it, and we go there twice. The teams are tested a series of 3 times to ensure the integrity of our teams. All of our trainers are certified by an outside agency or have college degrees in animal science. The problem with the dog training industry is really, we're not regulated by anybody. So you really have to do your homework. What are your credentials? And we just make sure that our team is staffed with other veterans. Terry was an EMT. I've been a military spouse. Bruce was in the Air Force and then later a state trooper. And that's important to us because we really want that connection with them, where we know what it's like.
Mm-hmm. And going in on experience and kind of just elaborate on your team's background. Like you have already said, it's not really regulated. You kind of have to regulate yourself, but going through your website, it says that, most of your team are, certified in certain things and has a significant amount of experience behind training.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe our baby dog trainer is Terry, and she's at 12 or 15 years of dog training.
Yeah.
She started, and she might be our baby. We'll take a minute to call out Bruce, who turned 60 this year. He likes everybody to know.
It's a good year.
He likes everyone to know. But he was a dog handler in the Air Force. And then upon leaving the Air Force was an investigator for, with the state troopers. And then upon retiring with the Staties, he switched over, with what we call a crossover trainer, where he became positive. All of our training is positive reinforcement, and that's non-negotiable. You've already had bad days. You've already had a hard time. The only thing you're going to do with your dog is feed him beef jerky and hug him, so that's it, any force you've ever had to use, it ends at our door, and Bruce is certified through an organization called Catch. Terry's certified through Animal Behavior College. I have a degree in animal care. Kathy Stevens helps us out sometimes. She's actually a certified service dog trainer. And we all are involved in outside, seminars constantly. Right now, Bruce and I are both taking a course on mobility service dogs, so it just never ends. It's almost overwhelming when someone says, how do I become a dog trainer? Because it's really like, read every book you pick up,
Right.
Watch every video, go to every seminar, work at every shelter, so there's no easy answer. But Terry's involved with Mohawk Hudson Humane Society and their jail dog program. I've worked in several different shelters throughout the United States, and we just take that and, roll it all together and put it into this program.
Awesome.
How many dogs do you go through a year? How many classes do you do a year?
So we're expanding this year, but typically because the program is so long, we do about 12 a year, I would say. I mean, we keep the classes very small. What we're not going to do is take someone who has suffered trauma, who's starting their life over, and throw them in a giant group. So your classes are maybe 2, at most 3 dogs per class.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
And yep, 2 or 3, and that's it. So you get very individualized one-on-one attention. And we'll give them, we in theory have a timeline, But in reality, we give the teens as long as they need. Things come up, people go into inpatient programs and then their training has to stop. Things just happen, but I tell everybody who starts, do not make this priority for your life for the next year. Don't change jobs. Don't go to college. Don't cheat on your wife. Don't leave your husband. Don't
That's okay.
because when you start to feel that, don't be like, God, I'm feeling so much better. I think I'm going to go get that shiny new boyfriend I've always wanted.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Take this time for yourself. Allow yourself to be celebrated and to be front and center, because anything external that you add, transitions are very hard when you've suffered trauma. Moving is hard. Having new experiences is hard. And we work with people, especially, our 9/11 first responders who haven't been in a mall since then.
Yeah.
And we're going to the mall. It's on our checklist, and we're going there because it would be a disservice to them if we didn't, because your life, I always say, it's not my job to make their life bigger. It's my job to make the life they're living more comfortable. But your life just gets bigger. It just gets bigger. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna lead in. Keep going. I was just gonna go into the next thing I was thinking.
Well, so it just gets bigger. We've had teams take their dogs to, on planes, who never thought they'd be in a plane, never thought they'd go in a mall again. Teams who literally haven't been food shopping, who we've shown up. We had one team who they showed up at the grocery store and he texted me from his truck, and we had to text for 20 minutes for him to get into the grocery store. And grocery stores are scary places. There's you can't see your exits. There's giant, the aisles are covered. The aisles are small. There's people coming at you in every direction. And these are just things that day-to-day society doesn't think of. Although I do hope that now, because of the pandemic, we've all been living with something that we're afraid of, that we can't see, something we think might get us, something we think might hurt us, something, now the whole world's, standing 6 feet away from other people. We need 3 feet of personal space. If I was standing in front of you, I would feel very comfortable being an arm's length away from you. Somebody who has suffered trauma requires 6 feet of personal space. And that's not feasible in a grocery store situation. It's not feasible waiting in line at the airport, so the dogs are really taught. Everybody's dog is taught to buffer in these situations, whether in front of them, side to side, or behind them, to create that space without having to be like, please get away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's you think about it, it's pretty incredible what man can teach a dog to do. It really is unbelievable.
I never really thought about it, but because I had a friend of mine that he was there with the first time they went into Fallujah back in 2004, and I honestly can say I don't ever remember him going into a grocery store. And we would go out and stuff like that, and he would hand me when it's here, go grab this, I got to make a phone call or something like that. And it's just funny because I never even put that together.
Yeah, and even
he was going door to door kicking them in, and going into a grocery store would be just like going down those alleyways and shit. I never even thought of that.
And just hearing the story as she's telling it now, I'm like, hey, that's not something that normal people think about.
I've never thought about that in my life.
I don't, we take it for granted. We go in and we're like, oh, okay, it's a grocery store. I'll get my lettuce, I'll get my bacon, but not like, okay, I need to find exits. I need to see where people are, it's a whole different way of thinking.
Or something, we're going to, do a barbecue, and he always had something to do outside.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, even when I first met my husband, anytime we would go out to eat, his back had to be to a wall. Yeah. Never understood that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Never
Well,
got
he was
that.
either in the mafia and didn't share that with you, or
I could totally believe
I
that.
see that, yeah.
I'm gonna go with no.
yeah, I mean, you guys might have to have a conversation. I mean, yeah, I mean, when we've had to adapt how we do certain things too. I mean, we've had some veterans who aren't comfortable walking into Colony Mall because it's 2 levels and you don't know who's on that second floor.
Yeah.
So we start maybe at the Rotterdam Mall because it's only one floor. We've stopped walking in directly to the mall. We walk in through Barnes and Noble because you're walking into a store. You're not walking into a big echoey hallway. You can see the door, So it's like, I always joke with them that I have like hypervigilance to take care of their hypervigilance, So, but, I think that really we just, as a society, need to just change what we've decided post-traumatic stress looks like, or what it should be, or what the timeline is, because there's so much shame associated with it. The media only covers it. That's why I'm always so grateful for these interviews, because it's only covered if there's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's only covered if somebody kills their wife or hangs their dog, and it's like veteran with PTSD, and in small print, it's like was also schizophrenic and off their meds.
Right.
Well, there's other problems here,
Yep.
but being schizophrenic and off your meds isn't as sexy as being, somebody who was supposed to be, a hero to the community and country, now doing something not heroic, and the reality is trauma is anything that overwhelms the brain's ability to cope, anything. And that could be different for me, could be different for you. You and I can be in the same car accident and I could walk away fine and you could walk away never able to drive again.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to really just stop judging what other people's experiences are to them.
Yeah.
A disorder is anything that's medically not natural.
Yeah.
And post-traumatic stress is the most natural response to trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So even the diagnosis itself just sets people up for failure and to be stuck in this, identifiable cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gerard, you and I, when we talked to Dan, when we had our conversation with Dan's son, he said something so phenomenal in that, it would be one thing if we fell down and broke our arm and we're like, okay, you broke your arm. Yeah. But here with PTS, you almost fall down and break your mind, which I think is like phenomenal. Just a completely different way of thinking about it. And when you start thinking about it that way, you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should take into consideration how to heal these things like we would if we just fell and broke our arm. And so I was going to ask kind of not so much the process, but what kind of things for the EMS, the nurses, the paramedic, providers that you've started to open this program up to, what kind of healing have you seen from the teams doing that, like with these dogs?
Well, what I've seen is just a gross lack of resources for first responders.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is so much emphasis on veterans and veteran mental health, and it's like we automatically, it's just we've built the veterans, and the military community to be like these extraordinary people that go to extraordinary places and do extraordinary things. And meanwhile, we have the first responder community who's just an everyday part of our life. And they're almost so integrated that we don't see them as anything special, outside of that 30-second interaction you have with them if you need them, So I'm almost like the veterans, I know who to call for them. I know what resources to get them. I know where to get them mental health. I know where they should go for inpatient. I know if they need housing. I had a firefighter who needed a therapist and it was like nothing. There was just nothing available, for this woman. And I think because of that, really, it took a good year before we had a first responder apply to our program. And that was the article that you saw that had you reach out to me, because it's just that you guys are a tough group to penetrate because, you've just had to take care of yourselves or not be taken care of at all.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, I don't know how it is in the veteran community, but I think there's, a lot of anger in the paramedic community. No, I'm not saying anger, like not that way. Let me explain. In the fact that because there's no resources for us, we kind of we go through an event and we're like, okay, I would really love the opportunity to go to therapy, talk to somebody, and then you go to your supervisor, and your supervisor goes, "We'll just go pound sand." That's we don't have that.
And there's a stigma.
And there's this, and then there's the stigma, just get over it.
Right, you're fine. Just you can't do this if you don't have tough skin. Blah blah blah.
Right, and eventually we just become bitter and angry and
hard.
And and it affects ourselves, our outside of work environment, our in work environment, all because we're just angry because there's nothing there, and
and the very few things that they do as tokens to make it look like they give a shit is they have these after action stress debriefings, where you all sitting there and it's a dog and pony show, and they've got some mental health professional, quote unquote, and they've got their canned responses. You ask them a specific question, you get a very vague answer, just kind of a blanket answer, and everyone just goes around the table reliving everything, and then at the end they go, okay, everybody's good to go, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
happy and chipper.
Donuts and coffee, and we'll see you later. Have a good day.
Right.
Yeah, it's and that I could see where that would be.
And then they wheel the politicians in to get their photo ops.
Well, yes, and give your plaques.
No, I got my little certificate. And, all that good stuff.
But what really made me reach out to you, Joni, was not just the article, but reading in it, going, "Hey, this is incredibly different." For you think, service dogs for, the veterans and, the disabled and, people like that. But you never think ooh, hey, I just did a really, really terrible call and I've been doing therapy for years. But here's this other thing that may or may not be able to help me out. It's just another tool in the toolbox. And I think it's really awesome.
I have a friend who went to a very bad call. It was a fire, and a child was killed in it. And to this day, he has no sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
He won't go get help. He's perfectly fine. I know, I'm good. Oh, so you're okay with never smelling anything ever again, right? He's like, yeah, I'm good. I've learned to live with it.
Which is crazy. We shouldn't have to.
I know.
But traditional therapy, like she was saying, is just reliving it, where she actually brings something totally different to the table.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't smile?
Exactly.
Facts.
I'm going to really, that is such a great point, because especially if you suffer from hypervigilance, like you're a detective or you're a combat veteran or you're, a police or anyone who's had to really look out for bad guys, you get in the mindset that everywhere you are, someone is bad. There is a bad person there. And when you're walking with the dog next to you, people smile at the dog. Yeah. And then you don't have to
bad people.
Yeah.
Right. But, and you don't have to read into what their bad day is. What does their bad day look like to you? What does this possibly mean? Because they're looking at your dog.
Mm-hmm.
So it really, we just have to be, I'm a huge fan of rewrite your ending. You wake up. I feel like really, if you put your head on the pillow at night, put your feet on the ground in the morning, you've won. That's all you have to do. You can only work with who you are when you wake up that day. And it's okay if you wake up that day and you suck. It's okay if you do.
That's
but
a
the
running
beautiful
thing of
thing
the
about
show. We all suck.
Well, the beautiful thing about having the dog is they don't care if you suck.
Mm-hmm.
Your dog is never going to judge you for having a bad day. Your dog is never going to tell you you should do better. You should journal. Why don't you try meditation? Like, your dog is just going to lay at your feet and hope you let them out to pee 3 times. Like, it is a unconditional relationship that requires zero explanation, and the other piece of it is, we've had some family members that struggle. Here I've been as this loyal, devoted friend, father, wife, and I haven't been able to do what this dog can do. Depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, it's a family problem.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say isolated to one person. It just doesn't, and the dog really becomes the family's service dog. I've seen it so many times, but we have to normalize asking for help. It is entirely, completely, totally okay to lose a child in a fire and feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
It is okay for a cardiac call to not go as you want and feel bad about it. It's okay to drop people off at a hospital and then have to walk away to the next call and not know how it ends and feel haunted by that.
All the time.
You know what I mean?
And
how haunting.
Then you call back 4 hours later and they just hang up on you. It's
right.
like, gee, thanks.
Yeah.
No closure.
Right. So there just has to be more, honestly, empathy, and if you don't have it or you don't know what it means, you have, it's taught. I believe it's taught. I mean, I think definitely some people are more empathetic than others. But I mean, I'm a very in the moment person. I work well alone. I work well by myself. I really have to make sure that I stop, check in, and really think, what is it like for this person? Because to judge how somebody should be after an experience that I don't know. I mean, the only thing I always say I know is that I don't know. I don't know. I know my own experiences. I had cancer in high school. I definitely draw from that a lot because I knew the feeling of isolation. I knew the feeling of helplessness, of not having any control. I know what it's like to sit with my back to the wall because I was so claustrophobic from MRIs and CAT scans. I know what it's like when my veterans say they would rather be in combat than living in everyday life. Because when I walk into a hospital, I feel like it hugs me. It's where I grew up. So there's something just very familiar about like hospital French fries that I'm fond of, And we just have to get this idea over what it should look like. Do you have to have a thick skin to do your job? Absolutely. But can you feel bad? Yes.
Right. It doesn't need to be impervious.
And do we want first responders who don't feel bad? Because that's kind of psychopathic, right?
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah. I don't want somebody to take care of me or my family that has no feelings.
It doesn't feel bad afterwards because that's the normal part of it. If you take a life, regardless of the situation, regardless if it's justified, you feel bad about that. There's actually a lot of storylines going on now where they talk about a moral injury, doing this hurt who you are, what you've been told is right, and you have to make decisions in the moment. But what I can say with 99% of the people I've worked with is in the moment when they had to choose, they all chose to live.
Awesome.
They all chose to fight. They chose to live. They chose to get out of the moment. So anything you're feeling now is not your gut reaction. Anything that's telling you you shouldn't live, that's not your gut reaction. Your gut reaction was to fight and fight like hell. Your gut reaction was to save that life, to get them to the hospital as quick as possible, to save yourself, to save the people around you. And your gut is never wrong. But post-traumatic stress lies, trauma lies. It's like a haunting, something that haunts you and tries to convince you that, all your instincts were wrong. And I like our program because we teach them to trust your instincts. I mean, I can guide you on how to train your dog, but if every single person tells me, Joni, I feel better doing it this way, I always tell them, trust how you feel.
Yeah.
It's your dog, it's your relationship. I mean, I can guide you, I can give you 20 different ways to teach loose leash walking, but you know your dog, and it starts to rebuild trust with their dog, trust with me, trust with Terry, trust with Bruce, trust that our evaluators are good, trust that we're going to, let them, be able to walk around society, and to me, it's the bravest thing anybody's ever done, because you're taking something invisible inside of you and you're putting it on a leash and walking it next to you for everybody to see. And I don't know what's braver than that. I really don't, because you're opening yourself up to judgment. You're opening yourself up to opinions. We teach our teams how to advocate for themselves in public. The law is very clear on what people can and can't ask, what's allowed and what's not allowed. One of the things we do in every single class is I have volunteers come, because all of our dogs are trained on a release to greet other people, because our dogs are a bridge and never a barrier. So I always want the dog to start a conversation, start interaction, but on the same token, I have all the volunteers go around and let everybody say no. Can I pet your dog? No. Because you're allowed to say no.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're allowed to say no. And when you're in this type of work, right, and you have trauma and you have anxiety, people-pleasing mentality is very common. It's very common because you're trying to keep the peace. You want, you don't want to rock the boat, and I'm under the impression that if everybody likes me, I'm doing it wrong. I always joke with my husband, like we watch Dateline, and I'm like, if anybody ever asked you, does anybody not like your wife, you'd have to be like, pull up a chair. So you're not, I really, on the flip side is, you don't owe anyone an explanation. I never ask anybody what happened to bring you here. I don't require our veterans have combat related post-traumatic stress. I don't care if you've ever been to war. I don't care if you were in the Army for 35 seconds. I don't care, I don't care, because it's not that I don't care, but it's your story to tell.
Right.
And some of them share it and some of them don't. And it's not for me to hear your story and then decide if you're worthy of a service dog,
right,
or if you qualify for this. Our nursing program that we just started, we're starting with emotional support dogs until we are able to build it up a little more. But I mean, it's just, if you're a nurse in any capacity, RN, LPN, CNA, any capacity through the pandemic, and think you need someone to come home to, give us a call.
That's amazing.
I don't need to hear that you were in the emergency room, that you swabbed 27 noses, that you put 8 people on ventilators. None of that matters.
Yeah.
Because my best friend is a pediatric nurse, and I've seen what this pandemic has done to her. Just going to an office, and worrying if a kid comes in sick or someone has a fever, and then her having to go home.
Yeah. So that's kind of something that I wanted to get into. Just we talked about, the application process and such,
Sure.
But I know, you're located here in the Capital District of New York, but we have listeners all over the country. Now, is this, specific to New York? Do you take, first responders from anywhere? Do you take veterans from anywhere?
So this summer, our hope is we have a plan in place to expand to the rest of New York and hopefully New England. And we will be looking for volunteers to foster dogs from the shelter, get them through, the first 2 months of the program before we match them. And then we're going to come up with a program. Our intent is to have these people come into the Capital District for once a month, for a 4-hour day, 6-hour day, knock it out, and then meet through Zoom weekly. Because when I've given scholarships out in the past to people in different states, because my accountant said as long as I'm giving money to these types of people, I can give money away. So I give money away all the time. If I have it, I give it away. There is no better feeling than just calling someone's landlord and paying their rent and them not knowing. There is no better awesome than that, because we support our teams for the life of the dog. So if you don't have money, you can come to our program. I'll pay for your dog food. I'll pay for your vet care. If there's ever an emergency, we'll cover it. I mean, I will take care of it. So our intent is to hopefully, but when I've done the scholarships, there wasn't a follow through because they didn't have us. Mm-hmm. They didn't have OAE. They didn't have the other people in the room. Like I have a class right now with an Air Force veteran, a nurse practitioner, and a court officer, and they all get it because everybody has kind of been, you got to be in a group with everybody who wakes up and ties boots. You know what I mean? Like if you haven't woken up and had to tie your boots in the morning, then you're with the wrong group. Like that's who you need to be with. So we are expanding for, New England and the rest of New York this summer. But awesome. I mean, definitely anybody, wherever you are, call me because under the Americans with Disabilities Act, you have a right to train your own service dog. There is no registration, certification required or licensing required. None.
Wow,
there is no paperwork you have to carry. So you can literally get your dog, and I will happily call dog trainers in your area and interview them, and find a good one just to make sure that you're going to the right place. But that's your legal federal right.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then depending on your state, like in the state of New York, we have a right, public access rights the minute the dog is in training. Mm-hmm. So our service dogs, while in training, can go anywhere in New York, anywhere that isn't a sterile area, certain, that depends on your state. So you have to look into that, but there's certainly plenty of, pet friendly places. Businesses are allowed to ask 2 questions. Is this a service dog? And what does it do?
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, that is it, and I just tell businesses, watch, but they also have a right to ask the dog to leave if the dog's behaving inappropriately, because fake service dogs are a thing.
Yep.
Fake service dog organizations are a thing. I know dog trainers who have no business, or people who are calling themselves service dog trainers who have no business doing it. And it's a liability for a dog. It's a liability for the people, and who they're working with, and you really, we have to start celebrating people who are walking around with these dogs instead of being like, how do I catch them into being,
Right.
How do I catch them? Unfortunately, with everything that happened with the airlines, there's a big spotlight on that now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
They've taken ESAs off the plane, which I understand, but I don't love. I have a very good friend, and this is going to sound bizarre, but she's kind of bizarre. Who she's crazy, but in an awesome way, but she had like a bearded dragon, and she's a writer, and she would put her bearded dragon on her shoulder, and she's published 3 novels and flew with her bearded dragon. And is it weird? Sure. Did it work for her? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And why are we judging whether or not that should be okay?
Right.
Yeah. Why is nail chewing socially acceptable? Like you're eating your own fingers.
Valid point.
Yeah.
Give me a break. You know what I mean?
When the whole airline thing was coming out, I used to joke around and say, well, the hell, I'll just go get myself a therapy alligator, get on board, and everyone else will get off and have my own plane.
That's true.
Everybody else, yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have any other questions for Joni?
What are you doing for May, since it's Mental Health Awareness Month? Let's
talk.
Well, I mean, every month is Mental Health Awareness Month. Honestly, true. I think it's great there is a month, but every single month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I am constantly advocating and kind of bringing awareness. So do we do anything special? No, because we do it every day. It's like every day is Mother's Day in this house,
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, go ahead.
So at the beginning, we kind of alluded to that you had some fundraisers coming up. Just kind of go through, how if, a listener, wants to support your cause or anything, how can they either become a sponsor, donate, or, go to one of these fundraisers if they're in the area?
Yeah. So, in June, we have our yearly dog wash where we, really make all of our animal loving people feel good. Bring your dogs, give them a bath. We have vendors there, pet related vendors, and that's in June in Glenville at Wagtown Dog Wash. Megan is the owner of that salon, and this was our first fundraiser we ever did. I called my friend and I said, will you do a dog wash? And she shuts down her salon for the day, gives us the entire space, and donates all of the money to us.
Oh my God,
and
I will be there. Cooper and I will be there.
It was so amazing because even with the pandemic, when she was shut down and she could have very easily been like, I can't do it because I need an extra day a week to keep my business going. She still gave back. So we built that every year. We have more vendors coming to that. In August, we're doing our 3rd annual post-traumatic stress awareness motorcycle ride. So if you have a motorcycle,
I'll be at that one.
Okay. And even if you don't, stop by. We hold it on the end. We start at Spitzy's and we end at Wicked on Route 9. And you're welcome to come for lunch. Yeah, I tell everybody I always Uber to the end of the ride. But I just feel like there's nothing, more profound than an entire group of motorcycles riding for one reason when you could ride for free, so it really just puts a spotlight on this is important for us to talk about now. Trauma is important to talk about. Anxiety is important to talk about. Post-traumatic stress, and the whole thing of the ride is, we cross out that D because it's not a disorder, And, it's very important that we stop the stigma. So we have sponsorship. Our sponsorship packet and our vendor opportunities are available on our website, www.operationatease.org, as is the application for anyone who's interested in applying. And my phone number is there as well for anybody who wants to call with any questions.
And I'm going to link all those down in the show notes. So
awesome.
They'll have free access to those. Now, I know Kelsey was kind of perusing the website, and there was a option for sponsoring a team. Is that still an option?
Yes.
So how does that work?
Okay, we ask people to sponsor teams, and it basically just gives, and then when you're matched with the team, we send you an email with the picture of the team that you're matched with, and it allows us to supply the team with anything they need or might need throughout the training, proper equipment, head halters, mobility vests, vet care. I have some teams where my credit card is just at their vet clinic. So they can take their dogs in whenever they want, when we pay for that. So that's what sponsoring a team does. We really, as of right now, have never received any state or federal funding, and we don't receive grants. So everything that we do is from donations, is from the success of our fundraisers. And truly the community support has been overwhelming, and the goal is that I always laugh when everybody's like, how much money goes towards the veterans? And I'm like, well, the whole purpose of this group is to help people. But sometimes I need to buy pens, we need to drink, do I know the ratio? I don't. But I can absolutely say that any leftover money goes directly to them in ways even outside of their dogs. We fenced in yards for people.
And 90% goes to the front office.
Right.
Yeah. We don't have an office, so that's easy.
It's the old kitchen
that's
office.
That's easy to avoid.
No, this whole thing sounds absolutely amazing, and I'm sure just with the smiles that were on this at this table while you were explaining some of the the key points, I'm sure you'll see at least one or two of us down the road at different functions.
Yes.
Rubble would not be well with the dog wash, so I can't bring him to that.
I'm gonna have to tag along with Cooper because my dog doesn't do dog washes.
Oh, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I'll bring Shadow.
Cooper's always
Yeah.
muddy, so.
Dog does like the hose down in the backyard barely, so
Yeah.
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 No. Rubble wouldn't enjoy
But, you know,
it.
we also have training programs that are open to the public at a cost, because it's important to me also that our organization is self-sufficient, you know. So we have beginner classes, puppy classes. We actually have handling classes available now for dogs who don't do good at the vet or don't like nail trims. We're going to be
I think
opening
you
the
just I think you just sold Emily.
You will totally see Cooper.
Yeah.
My dog is so
Yeah, we're going to be
misbehaved.
opening the service dog program up to the public at a very affordable price, because there's just no reason for people to need these dogs and not be able to. And there's certainly no reason for 1 million dogs to lose their life every year.
Isn't that crazy?
You know, I mean, that
Wow.
there is absolutely no reason for that. There is no reason for, you know, children who have autism, who could, you know, have friends if they had a dog, not to have these dogs. So we've created a pretty expandable, affordable training program that we're going to be rolling out. And then that way, all of that money can just go for us to expand further, you know, develop the nurses program from an emotional support program to a service dog program, you know, so.
Totally sold. I'm ready.
Yeah. It's kind of like the ball's rolling, so we're just gonna chase it down the hill, you know.
All right. Anything else from you guys?
I'm just glad to hear there's something like this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much
thank
for
you
all the work
so
you do.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
This whole thing is just very inspirational, and I you know, 99% of our listeners are, you know, within the EMS realm. So
Sure.
hopefully they're, you know, taking notes and going, hey, this is something that I don't need to ask my supervisor about. I can do this on my own and not be like, hey, go pound sand.
I wish I would
You
have
know.
known about this myself.
Yeah. Well, now you do.
But I was gonna say, you know about it now. What do you mean you wish? There's no past.
Well, guess
right.
you
There's
had
no
a
past.
dog.
You're currently living in today.
Make
You
Shadow a support dog.
Yeah.
Get
I
another one.
I mean, you could try.
Sure.
Is there's no like age limit? Like I guess this is my last question before we wrap up. It
That's a
popped
good
into my
question,
head
yeah.
because like my dog is 3, Shadow is God
Yep.
knows how long,
7.
you know, 7, but yet you
my
said
dog's
that if
12.
if there's a dog within the family that you wanted to train, could you still train that dog, even them being older,
So-
not so much a puppy?
You know, this is just where we kind of have to look at it, and we have to get approval from your veterinarian that the dog is in a good place to work, you know, because we don't want to take a senior dog and put them in social situations they can't navigate because of hearing loss or eye loss, or maybe,
that makes
you know,
Sense.
arthritis or hip problems, you know. And on the flip side, also, I don't take young puppies. I mean, every
'cause they're
puppy in the
bunkers.
world is awesome.
Cooper.
Yep.
Well, puppies
Yes, they are.
puppies don't suck until they hit like 6 or 8 months old,
Mhm.
you know. So I want to meet them
Even
after
then.
they're done sucking, when they're an adult dog, you know, and we start doing our evaluations at a year old.
Yeah.
Our evaluations for dogs in the home are always done in public. They take about an hour, and our shelter dog evaluations are about 3 hours long. And we go off of what the evaluation the shelter has already done. So our shelter dog evaluations spend time at the shelter, working with them there, seeing what their trainability is, taking them for car rides, at least 30 minutes to make sure no one gets sick, because a vomiting service dog is not a good look.
Not a good thing.
Not a good look. You know, we work with them in public. We always go to a hardware store because we want to make sure this dog is good with noise, good with, you know, big moving carts, good with men with beards, men in boots, you know, small children running by, you know, the lumber machine cutting, the glass cutting machine, you know, anything that makes loud noise is found at Lowe's, you know, so we run them
much.
through there. You know, the dog in the home, we have
That's why
more
I'm gonna go to
history
Lowe's.
on, obviously. So that's why it doesn't need to be as long. But I mean, our shelter dogs, you know, we don't know what their story is. I mean, we only know what people tell us at the shelter, and who knows
Right.
if they've told us the truth.
Right.
Right. Yeah, you can barely get what kind of breed it is from a shelter. So
Well, and
Let alone
the
a
dogs
story.
refuse. Yeah, and the dogs refuse to talk about their mothers also. So when you ask them,
Go
you
figure.
know,
Go
so,
figure.
I mean, that in itself is a trauma, you know.
Yep.
So
Well, Joni, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time. This
Yes,
was
thank you.
absolutely
Thank you,
amazing.
too.
And like I said, all of the information for Operation at Ease can be found in the show notes. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it in the description below. If you're in need or just curious, reach out to Joni, please.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Milkbone.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you'd like more information on the podcast or to send us a call to review, visit medicmaterials.com/podcast. To learn more information, like us on Facebook at Medic Materials EDU, or watch our weekly instructional videos on the Medic Materials YouTube channel.